Folks, welcome back for another episode of Buzzworthy Chit Chat. It's your girl, Lexi Mahari, and we are back to talk about MoNique. Is she stuck or is she ready to move on? Before we dive into this conversation, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so that you can be kept up to date each time I post a brand new video. So you might have heard by now, but last week MoNique was on Turned Out with T.S. Madison, and she spoke about her ongoing lawsuit with Netflix and, of course, the Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey drama that has been going on, I guess pretty much since the time, the Precious movie was completed and the promotion took place. Now, if you're not familiar with this story, I would highly encourage you to definitely go out and watch a few of her interviews. One thing I will say about MoNique is that her version of events for both the Netflix lawsuit as well as the Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey, and Lee Daniels situation, it's all been very consistent. So I tend to lean on believing what she is saying and her perspective about it because she has been very consistent. And if you've ever dealt with people who lie, that's not to say that people can't be a consistent liar, but many of them are not very good at being consistent in the story that they're telling. And MoNique has been very consistent about what she perceives to have happened, how she engaged in each event, where she stood on each event, what she said to these people in real time, and since that time. And so she was on, as I mentioned, Turned Out with T.S. Madison last week. And T.S. Madison actually asked her about the Netflix lawsuit, as well as the Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey, Lee Daniels saga, so to speak. And so I wanted to kind of dive into each of these situations because I do believe MoNique has a valid point on each one. And I know people are up in arms in the fact that she won't, quote, let it go. But I want to challenge you on a couple of things. So let's start with the Netflix lawsuit. I will say at the time when MoNique called for people to boycott Netflix, I thought it was a bit insane. And I still think, it was probably a bit much. But, however, I think that she had a valid point in how she felt they were trying to, underpay her for her services in so many words, right? This is an Oscar-winning actress. You can't take that away from her. She won an Oscar for her role. She was a well-established comedian. She had definitely done the work. And yet they only wanted to pay her, I believe she says, somewhere around $500,000. Of course, it was nowhere near what Amy Schumer was paid at the time. And that's not to take away from Amy Schumer, but even Amy Schumer was like, look, I'm not as accomplished as this woman is. And, she deserved more. And then, of course, when you compared that, of course, to a Dave Chappelle or I think Chris Rock had a deal as well. It was nowhere near that, right? It's like, come on, people, at least you could give her $2 million or $3 million, right? But apparently this had been an ongoing thing. I think Wanda Sykes, mentioned as well that, maybe she wasn't paid as much either. And so I felt that MoNique, in all fairness to her, had the right to stand her ground. Now I don't know anything about the legalities and filing lawsuits. I think, potentially she may have a leg to stand on if she perceives there to be some discrimination and, as it relates to her background, her work, her accomplishments, because at the end of the day, she was lowballed in the money that Netflix was offering to pay her for the special, right? And since that time. So, I felt that she had a leg to stand on. And so again, T.S. Madison inquired about this. She didn't bring it up. T.S. Madison asked her about it. And then, of course, we moved from the Netflix conversation over to the Tyler Perry drama. And, and the Oprah Winfrey and Lee Daniels component to that drama. And so she once again reiterated what she perceived to have happened, right? That she made this film. When it was over, she was ready to return to her home, be with her family, and they wanted her to travel and promote the movie, different festivals. You may or may not know that there are multiple film festivals that take place. And so for indie films like Precious, that's where they really get out there and beat the drum, pound the pavement to promote their films. Well, MoNique felt strongly she didn't want to travel for that. She wasn't being paid for that. She hadn't signed any contracts saying she had to do it. So she just wanted to go home and be with her family. And, she goes into detail about all the things that, I guess, let's say Oprah Winfrey offered her or tried to get her to do, Lee Daniels and or, Tyler Perry. Each of them tried to encourage her to go out there and promote the film, but she turned everyone down and basically said no, she didn't want to do it. And so as a result of that, from what I've taken away from each of these interviews, she felt that she was blackballed, and each of these individuals potentially maybe saying different things to her at different times, right? And you may know what this is like. You're trying to convince somebody to do something they don't want to do. So maybe there's three of you who have been asked to go in there and see if you can change their mind. And so you come in there and you're like, I know, girl, I know this is a lot of work. And yeah, I wouldn't want to do it either. But yeah, they really, really need you. And she says no. Okay, here comes the other person. They come in the same way. Yeah, I don't know what she's talking about. I wouldn't want to do it either. But yeah, you really, really need to do this for us. Can't you do it? Hey, we'll throw in this airplane. We'll throw in this for you. We'll make sure you get there comfortably and back to your family in a week. Won't you do it? Won't you do it? No, I'm not interested. All right. So meanwhile, these conversations are happening, right? Where everybody's trying to get this one person to do something. But then when they meet up on the back end, she's being difficult. It's that potential portrayal, right? Of what has actually transpired, right? Everyone went in there, supporting her, allegedly supporting her and saying they understood how she felt and hey, they're willing to make these amenities for her to make it easy if she'll just do it for them. And she's still saying no. And then there's additional conversations that happen offline that, she actually recorded. That's a whole other story we can get to in a moment. But, she's recorded as proof that people are basically giving her one story, but coming back out into the public and saying something different. And so, MoNique obviously was very upset by this, right? She felt like she was blackballed, that she hadn't, in Hollywood, and that she hasn't been able to potentially make the kind of movies that, she likely should have been making after winning the Oscar. And so she's upset still, however many years later, gosh, when did Precious come out? As I'm talking to you now, I am Googling this because I feel like it's been at least 10 years, right, since that movie came out. Yeah, Precious came out in 2009. So since 2009, this has been bubbling in her. And so I won't say that she has talked a lot about it in the last 2 years. Not that I'm aware of it. Maybe I'm blocking it out with everything that's gone on. Of course, she was going hard and heavy maybe five years ago, I would say. But she had kind of backed away from some of that conversation unless asked about it. And so this is another situation in which she was asked about it, right? And she clearly had some strong feelings about it. And, allegedly Tyler Perry had indicated he was willing to sit down with her and have a conversation on the condition that she apologized publicly to him and Oprah Winfrey. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. These are just some of the rumblings that I've heard on, different YouTube channels and that I've read on other sites about, what allegedly has transpired between her and Tyler Perry. But, if that is true, Tyler Perry is wrong because you don't get to tell people how they should feel, about what has transpired. We have all had things happen and everyone handles a situation differently. It may not be the way you or I would handle it, but if you're really wanting to make peace with this person and remove the perception that, things are what she said they are, then you go in there and you have a real conversation about what you need to do to move forward. That's just how it goes. And, I think if what she has said is true, there is still a lot of ego that is sitting in this whole situation. Now, that's not to say that MoNique is completely, exonerated of some things. The fact that she was recording conversations without people knowing, that's a bit troubling. Yet I can understand why she did it, right? Because there would be this narrative out there that she's just being difficult, that no one said these things to her, that this person never stood with her. So I can understand why she did it. But for me, it's wrong. And I would be mad as the other person if you're recording conversations without my knowledge. I think, however, if you're saying things to people on the phone, now I know this may sound flip-floppy, but I have to say this. If you are saying things to people on the phone, then you have to be prepared to stand on whatever it is you're saying to them in person. Whatever you say about other people, you have to always be able to be prepared to say, yeah, I said it, and stand firm on that. So whatever Tyler Perry said to her that made her feel that he was in her corner, he should have stood on that ground, right? It didn't have to be this quote private conversation. If you said she was right to feel the way she felt, then you should have came back out and said that again, whether, Oprah is your friend or not. Friends should be able to tell friends when they perceive them to be wrong. I don't care how much money they have, how much power they have. You should be able to have that conversation. So, I know, if we go over to this conversation around, man, is she right to hold on to this, or should she just let it go and move on? I think it's two things are true here. I think that she is very entitled to hold on to how she feels about how she perceives she was treated by these individuals, or that she feels they are blocking her. But on the other hand, I think it's time for her to try to continue moving on. I know there's been a lot of conversation about, what she's done since that time, or why can't she just, make other films, maybe other indie films, maybe put up the money. And I think she has done actually a couple of movies since that time. I know I saw her in a film that I know came out long after Precious that she did, but she's done other things, I want to say, since that time. Obviously, Ma Rainey is something that I believe we saw her as in the Bessie movie. She was Ma Rainey. I saw her in the Blackbird film, which was really good. Almost Christmas. So she's been in a lot of, I won't say a lot, but a few other films since that time. So for me, I'd like for her to continue down that path, right? To not worry about these other people and look for ways to carve out her own path and show the world that she's not difficult to work with, that she is a, class act, a wonderful actress and comedian, and just push past this in the best way that she can. And, if willing, perhaps at some point, her and Tyler Perry would be able to come back together and work together at some point. He could get over whatever he's feeling and they could work together feasibly, or they don't have to work together. I know Tyler Perry is a very powerful person and he's done great things, obviously, having acquired his own land to have his own studios and all that great stuff. And I am a Tyler Perry fan, so I appreciate all that he has done, and I see what he's accomplished and where he could continue to go. But I wish MoNique could kind of just move past that, and if they get to come back together, they do great. If not, they move on. I think I heard on one of the other Fox Soul shows, they pointed out that she should have the career of a Viola Davis. And I agree with that. She was that good in Precious. She has been that good in other films. I think she definitely has the capacity to do so much more. So, I hope MoNique is able to move on. I think she needs to move on, but she has a right to hold on to her anger, and no one should fault her for that. I think it's a triggering conversation for her. So if she still feels the way she feels, she has a right to it. And with that, all right, folks, thank you for listening to my opinion, and I will catch you in the next video.